we are here with guitar number 106 once again for David in California. It's a commissioned build. In the previous episode for this, I did the binding channels. So I've installed the binding, I've sanded all that back. You saw the neck get carved, and I've actually installed the neck and radius the fretboard, okay? And a couple other things here and there to get it to this state, or this stage that we have it right now, where it is ready to have the frets installed. And I'm going to take an opportunity with this particular video. I'm going to do this a little bit differently than I've been doing for this series. And I'm going to actually give you guys just a fret hammering technique tutorial right here, right now. Let's get started. So first of all, a couple prerequisites here just to get started and get yourselves to this stage that I'm at right here. As you can see, I've masked off the fretboard. This is one to protect the fretboard from the hammer, although it being a brass head, it actually can't do too much damage to the fretboard surface. But if you really miss a fret and you're swinging pretty hard, you can leave a little micro indentation on the wood. But primarily, actually more so than that, I do the tape so that I can prepare these fret slots, which I've already done here. So that's another thing you have to do. You have to have your fret slots prepared. What do I mean by having them prepared? Well, one, they have to be deep enough, and at this stage, it's always worth just double checking that your fret slots are deep enough that the tang is not going to bottom out. In addition to that, all of my fret slots have a tiny bevel that I've filed into the top of it with just a little needle file, a triangular needle file like you see here. I really like this diamond one. Not sure where I got it, but it works well. The reason for putting just a subtle bevel, not a huge bevel, just a subtle bevel into the top of each fret is to mitigate the problem of chip out. If you have a fret end that lifts up throughout the process, that tang, as it comes up and exits, here I'll show you a fret. The tang is the bottom portion that actually embeds into the wood. As that comes up and exits the slot, if you have no bevel on it and it's just a straight 90-degree turn there, 90-degree angle, then that tang is going to catch on the edge of the wood and pop off a chip. This is especially problematic with ebony, which this is ebony. So we definitely want to do that here, although it's not a bad idea to just do it on no matter what wood you're using. Now, I did say mitigates the problem. Generally, you don't want the tang to come back up. Usually that means you did something wrong with your hammering technique. But hey, it happens, and if it does happen, we want less chip out than we would normally get. Not to mention, it's worth mentioning that every guitar at some point, some old repairman or woman is going to take his nippers and pull those frets off, and when he does that, he will be much happier if he's not getting huge chunks of wood that come up with the fret. And hey, that old man or woman might be you. So be kind to your future self. And then lastly, I want to mention that I have this block here. It's good to have a block where you just drill a bunch of holes in it and mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 holes here. I might have up to 24 holes depending on how many frets my guitar has. So I think you get the idea here. This is so we can cut out an individual sized fret for each space, because you know, we have a taper to our fretboard, so we're going to have require longer fret wire down at the end as opposed to at the top. And these are all cut, by the way, so that they are just a little bit, about 1/8 of an inch longer on each side. So I have about 1/8 of an inch overhang on each side. And that is simply because when you nip these, there's a tendency for the tang to either just get a little damaged or to even get kind of mangled and bent over to the side. And if you have that mangled tang right over your fret slot, when you go and hammer it, you are going to then mangle the fret slot, and then you're really in a world of trouble then. So to avoid that, we want to cut these long so that the mangled portion will sit outside of the footprint of the fretboard. And lastly, I just want to say that this fret wire, this Evo Gold fret wire, it's not nickel silver, it's Evo Gold. That won't matter for the rest of what we're doing though, but I just wanted to mention that. This is Evo Gold and it's already bent. I actually buy them in pre-bent coils just because it makes sense for me to do that. And but a lot of you guys might be buying your fret wire as straight rods, in which case you have to bend it in a fret bender yourselves, and you always want to bend these to an over radius to whatever radius your fretboard is. Okay? Keep that in mind. Alright, let's get started with some actual technique here. So I've got my fretting hammer here. This is a StewMac hammer, and actually I have two different hammers, both from Stuart McDonald. I'm not sure if one is like a first generation, and then I think this would be the second generation if that's true, or maybe StewMac sells both of these hammers. What I do know though is that they have the key difference of the fact that this hammer, the black one right here, has shot in the head. So shot like, you know, shotgun shell shot, little beads, and that's to prevent recoil. This one does not have any shot in it. It does have a plastic head on one side, but we won't be using that. We're going to be using the brass side only, because brass is nice and hard, but it is softer than our fret wire. And if you're using nickel silver, doesn't matter what fret wire you're using, it's softer than even the nickel silver is. But it's definitely softer than Evo Gold, and we're using Evo Gold. I brought up the two different hammers only to say that I notice zero difference between both of them. Even the one with the shot in there, they feel the same to me. So if you happen to see both of these out on the market, either of them work, in my opinion. My humble opinion. So we're going to go ahead and use this one right here. This is important. Speaking of shot, this bag right here is a rifle rest, actually, and it is a bag filled with sand. It could be filled with shot. It could be filled with really any sort of loose material so that we don't get recoil. You can't just use any old neck rest for fretting because you will have a lot of recoil. So for example, the neck rocker that StewMac sells and makes, that's not going to work here. Just pounding away on top of a piece of wood like that is going to generate too much recoil. The bag filled with shot works really good. And hey, here's a cool tip. The poor man's neck rest, in this case for fretting, is a bag filled with rice wrapped in duct tape. That's actually what I started out with, and it works just the same. It just looks a little janky on camera, and I like these rifle rests. They work really nicely. Alright, let's go ahead and do it. So you're going to take your first piece of fret wire. I've got my bag underneath. I don't want it just sitting out away from where I'm working. So this bag is always going to follow me as I go fret to fret. I'm going to place my fret right on there, remembering that I cut it a little extra long, and I want to remember to leave that excess hanging out over the ends so I don't damage the edge of my fret slots. And I'm just going to balance it there with my finger, and the back part of my hand is going to gently put pressure down on the neck. Okay, gently. So I'm balancing that there, and if I care about my finger, I'm going to push it over to the side a little bit so I don't hit it. And I'm going to give a nice sharp stroke right on the end, just like that. Okay? And now I'm going to take my finger, if I care about it, and slide it over to the other side, and another sharp stroke, just like that. And so what I have now is both the ends are seated and in the middle, it's sticking up like this. There's an arch in the middle, okay? Now I have to behave myself here because if I just whack this right in the middle now, what's gonna happen is one or both of these ends are going to pop right back up and probably take little bits of wood with it. And I say little bits because we did the right thing and we beveled that slot beforehand. So that way we get minimal chip out. But hey, we don't want to get any chip out, so we're just not going to hit this square in the middle. What I'm going to do instead is work my way from the secured ends in towards the middle on one side and then the other side, and then back to this side, until I've kind of pushed. You can think of it like you're squeezing an air bubble from both sides towards the middle. Okay? So I'll show you what I mean. And I do this with nice little quick double taps. All my strokes, by the way, are hard. These are good, solid strokes. Okay? It actually helps to have a drummer's grip, to have played the drums at some point. So I grew up playing the drums actually, and creating that fulcrum point so that you can snap the hammer from the wrist is much better for the sake of power and accuracy than if you were to just death grip the hammer like this and just kind of swing it while holding that death grip. The reason for that is I can get a lot of power from my wrist without having to move my arm and lose all that accuracy. See that? Okay? Now if I death grip it, to get that same power, I gotta lift the hammer up way higher, and I'm gonna end up missing and maybe hitting my finger, which that would really hurt. By the way, there's no amount of extra tapping here at the end that's harmful. I'm not indenting the fret wire. If anything, it's indenting the head of the hammer. So you can just kind of go to town if you think maybe you haven't secured it enough in one area. If you look at it from the side, you might see it lifted up in the middle or on the ends. And you can just give it a couple extra taps just to be sure. So that's one piece of fret wire there. Let's go ahead and do another one, and I'll keep talking. So I'm going to slide this over again because we need this bag to follow us fret to fret. I'm going to place my wire right there, leaving the ends hanging out. Slide my finger over just a hair. And remember, the back of my hand is gently maintaining pressure. Good hard tap. Slide that finger over. Good hard tap. Don't be afraid to give it a good hard tap. And just to show that you shouldn't be afraid of this, look at that. With that tape on there, I can hit the fretboard. I'm not afraid to do that, truly. Alright, so I've got the two ends secured, and I've got my arch in the middle, and I'm going to, now my finger doesn't need to be there, but my hand still needs to gently maintain down pressure while I do my double taps. Okay. Next one, slide it over. When we talk about those double taps, the reason I do the double taps, this might be a little subtle, but because you could just do a single tap, go to the other side, single tap, and just keep walking your way inward. I like the double tap because what I'm doing with that first tap is I'm swinging and I'm hitting exactly where the fret is already completely secured. Essentially, I'm hitting where I don't even need to hit. It's already secured there. But that's really just my lineup stroke. And then that second rapid hit is just a hair beyond that lineup stroke. And in that way, I'm not going to aim for this spot right here and accidentally hit it square in the middle and have the ends pop out. So that's why I'm doing that sort of rapid fire jackhammer stroke. For me at least, it helps with accuracy. Alright, I'll do one more here with a little less explanation. Maybe no explanation I'll do for this one. Just so you can see what it looks like when I'm not yammering away. Okay, there we have it, guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these in here. By the way, you might be wondering, how am I going to get these frets over the tongue here? Because we actually have an issue. The sound box, you know, I said recoil was sort of the enemy of what we're doing right now. And the sound box is basically, if I were to design something to create recoil, if I wanted to do that, I couldn't do much better than the acoustic guitar sound box. So we sort of have a problem there when we're hammering over here, and this is just recoiling away like crazy. So we need to mute that recoil, and just to show you how I do that, I like to use this tool here. It's another, Jesus, this whole thing seems like a StewMac advertisement, and I swear it's not. I don't have any affiliation with them. I don't do, you know, marketing for them. But hey, this happens to be another StewMac tool. This is the Fretbuck, is what they call this. This was actually developed in the Taylor Guitar Factory, which is kind of cool. And then I guess they, you know, sold the idea to StewMac, and they sell it. And the way this works is you pass this in through the sound hole, tighten it up, and it solves the problem of all that recoil there. And then you just hammer these frets in, no different than how I was hammering these, just with this big apparatus hanging onto the fretboard tongue area. There are other ways to deal with this. You know, I've seen people hold a block underneath, but honestly, it doesn't work as well as the Fretbuck, in my opinion. That seems to be the way to do it. A lot of people, by the way, it should be mentioned at this point that a lot of people solve this problem simply by fretting the board before it is attached to the neck and to the body. I think the best way to build a guitar is to do all of this work, leveling the fretboard, radiusing the fretboard, installing the frets, to actually do that after everything is assembled. It just makes a lot more sense for a number of reasons. I've talked about this in other videos. It's a little bit of a derailment to get into that right here in this video, so we won't. So I'll just leave that aside. But just keep in mind that a lot of people do fret their boards off of the body, and that technique I showed you would be the same in that case. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is that this, I think, is going to be the last video that I do on Guitar 106 for a little while, because honestly, I really have to get this done. I'm starting to get real close to that ship date. I'm actually past it, but and I've now made a new second ship date, but I'm getting really close to that one. So I just have to turn off the camera and get a whole bunch of work done. I'll definitely do a final video to show you this guitar and what it looks like, what it sounds like, how it plays, everything like that before it actually gets shipped out to California. But I probably won't be doing any more progress videos, at least on this. I'll be doing the Q&As and everything else that I normally do. Alright guys, that's all I got for you. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm going to keep hammering away on these frets. Bye for now.
If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.